Aloha everyone, this is Isabelle. I'm talking to you from PTC Hawaii. I'm joined today by a return victim of mine, the one and only and very colorful Nigel Bayliff, CEO of Aqua Comms. Nigel, welcome to my Hawaii hot seat.
Yes, aloha. How are you? You see that I've dressed usually for PTC. I'm kind of known for fairly exuberant shirts.
I'm very excited that you have your PTC outfit on, Nigel. I would be very sad if you didn't. So I think it gives us a bit of a warmth to start the new year. So just to go back before we talk about the new year, I think 2020 has been a hell of a year. A lot has happened. So in your view, how has the submarine cable and connectivity business changed in 2020?
Well, I mean, we've had everything, haven't we? We've had, complete lockdown of the globe. We've had no traveling. Obviously, our industry's been affected, as all industries, but not, I would say, particularly adversely. What we've seen from our perspective is traffic, obviously, has had an increase, and the patterns of traffic have changed. So we've seen about a 10 to 30% increase, depending on the route. And what carriers have done is they've started to run their networks hotter. So in the early part of the lockdown, we saw almost 9 months worth of sales that we would normally expect within 1 month. And we were able to provision that and give it to customers. What that's done though, is it's meant that down the line, people who had big IP networks, they were just running at a higher and higher percentage. So I would see 2021 even to see increases as a result of the lockdown. And I think the other thing that we can acknowledge in 2020 that's happened is we've turned now into the renewable cycle of cables. So everybody talks about renewables and renewable energy, but I think we forget that our cables also need renewing. And in 2020, TAP 14 retired. That was a fairly big, watershed event for the industry. That's one of the cables that was built back in the 1990s, 2000. It's retired before its actual design life, but in an appropriate time for its economic life. And we'll see that happen now with some of the older cables and some of the newer vintage cables and the new ones which are coming online, more efficient, therefore more capacity for the same sort of cross-sectional area and cost. That's a big change. All of that, 2020 was the start of that. COVID probably just accelerated things that were happening anyway, getting data into the cloud, getting online, getting things working without the need for physical travel or physical location in an office.
So what about if we looked into Nigel Bayliff's crystal ball and we looked into the future? What would we see? What will 2021 bring in terms of big trends?
Well, everybody mentions 5G, right? To me, in the submarine world, 5G is a source of data dynamism, and that's great because that's going to drive capacity onto cables. What I think from the cable perspective we're going to see is the need for flexibility. COVID certainly told us that we needed to turn up terabits of capacity in very short deadlines to meet with surge of demands in different parts of the world. So that's going to be built into people's plans. We kind of built it in from the ground up into Aqua Comms. We've had a light touch network that can deliver capacity very, very quickly. But most people now are looking at the words like network as a service or infrastructure as a service, which is how we kind of term ourselves, and some form of liquidity to the way that the capacity is put onto the networks and delivered to customers. We see all of the people that we service, Packet Fabric, Megaport, Console Connect, and Epsilon, all these guys who are doing that, to the enterprise organizations around the world, need a similar kind of focus from their intercontinental provider. So that's a big ticket item for us. The second one is diversity. There's a big trend around, and by diversity, I mean physically separating routes to make sure that there isn't a single node where there's massive opportunity for a point of failure event. This is something which has come in because of the focus of the OTTs. The carriers, traditionally going back 10, 20 years, liked to group everything together. Somewhere like 60 Hudson was the place. If you weren't in 60 Hudson, you couldn't connect with all the other carriers. Now it's more about how do you space those out along a shoreline and in a country to make sure you've got power diversity, physical diversity, political diversity. And the new one that's coming along is the diversity of data handling policy. You know, GDPR, Privacy Shield, all these different subtext in different countries will affect how people flow data and where they flow it and where they store it and where they compute it. So I think big change there. And then I think we're going to see big surge in the M&A deals. Obviously, a big deal that's just happened with the GTT infrastructure. A couple of other big deals may or may not happen over the course of the year. There's some talks about Telsius, etc. But I think consolidation, you know, our industry is quite difficult to enter into from the beginning. You have to set up all the different capabilities and be able to be good at very large infrastructure deployment projects. You know, that's not easy to sort of start slowly and move onwards. So there'll be consolidation to create that. The carriers are all looking at divesting the big infrastructure elements, their towers, their submarine cables, and focusing much more on a kind of a homeland approach to things.
So a lot of exciting things, but also a lot of challenges. So I think there's a lot on the plate there. So talk to us about Aqua Comms. Anything, any big news you can share with us? Any special secret project you can talk to us about?
If I share you secret projects, Isabelle, not going to be secret, but no, we're quite actually we approach this development as a little bit more quietly than others. Obviously, a lot of people try to make a lot of noise in the press, and that's fine, and that's they go their way. If you look at what we've been doing, we've been consolidating on the Atlantic. So we built our model. We have a very flexible model that's very intelligent, based on intelligent outsourcing and automation. We call it aggressive automation. We seek to give the customers the ability to do as much as they possibly want to do on our network. And that means it's more efficient for us and more efficient for them, and just generally more efficient. So we built all that model around the Atlantic, and we had AC1 2015, AC2 went live, back in 2020 there. AC3 is coming. AC3 is due in early 22. We also have plans for AC4 and AC5. So that will give us a big consolidated set of systems across the Atlantic where we can offer these flexible services, these liquid capabilities to give people, the way to get across the Atlantic very efficiently. So then the next phase that we're developing is the liquid product piece. So the liquid products will start to launch next year. They'll allow people to automate their supply requirement on a submarine cable on our network so that they can grow at a speed that they want to grow. They can add capacity, then take it away again in a very flexible format. The reason is that's what we need to do in the world. We need to be dynamic. Traffic flows are by their nature dynamic, and dynamic traffic flows are even more dynamic. This is not about Netflix releasing a new film. That can be staged and sent out via a CDN. This is about massive news events or huge game surges or different things that are actually facilitated by the 5G, the handset, which can deliver hundreds of megabits back into a network. So that's a big thing for us, is the bandwidth on demand type approach. The next sort of area that we're divesting out on is the professional services. We actually already manage submarine cables for other people. So we don't own them, but we overlay our management network and capabilities to give them the efficient management of those assets for their own purposes. Sometimes we help them sell them or provision on them, but we generally help them operate them and maintain them and repair them and things. So that's a big kind of arm for us, because it allows us to get more efficiency out of our operating model. And then the final one, the so-called secret projects. Look, we don't really make a secret about the fact is we look at unique routes and unique differences to the way routes are deployed. So we are looking absolutely, and have been for some time, at the Arctic. You know, the Arctic Ocean is one of the only oceans that doesn't have significant intercontinental cables laid through it. It sadly, in some respects, has become easier to do that because of global warming. And we are involved in more than one Arctic project to deploy submarine cable capacity between, you know, Asia and Europe via that route. And we're also very deeply involved in the launch of a new part of our company in Asia. And that, you'll hear more about that in the coming few days, where, you know, we will be launching an organization in Asia to look at the development of 3 or 4 specific routes, which we've been working on for a while. They'll typically connect Asia to Europe via some semi-traditional routes, but also some, you know, fairly unique routes. So it's really about Aqua Comms, as we said over the past year, moving out from its heartland, scaling up around the world, and you know, delivering this automated, flexible, and helpful capability to everybody who needs to get connectivity between continents.
Wow, Nigel, that's so exciting. There's a lot of stuff going on in your patch of the world. So I'm so happy we were able to meet again in Hawaii this year. And I would like to thank you for joining me on the Hawaii Hot Seat. And cheers, as we always do. We like to drink together, Nigel. So everyone, thank you for watching, and until my next hot shot.